Hello and welcome back to art class. Today we should be able to wrap up this project. What you should have at this point is you should have your name, whether it's your first name or last name, written out. One of the things I noticed is make sure that the lowercase letters are actually as tall as from the center fold here to the dotted line. That's how tall the lowercase letters should be. Capital letters should almost hit the top of the page, and tall lowercase letters like a D should hit top as well. One other thing I did notice is some people who had lowercase letters, they try to squeeze their tail in up here. The tail actually hangs down below the line, so you need to double check that. And then we had a few people who had capital letters like a Y for Yasmin, or J for Jacob, or something like that. Capitals are for those have actually a tail that hangs low below the line as well down here. So just be aware that they are extremely tall letters because they have a tail like this. So make sure you take a look at that. Okay. Next thing we need to do, okay, you are going to need a few items. You're going to need obviously this picture that you just did of your name. You're going to want to still have that black marker handy, or black colored pencil. I'm sticking with Crayola. Sharpie actually works the best, but I'm going to stick with Crayola because I think most people have one of those. You want a pencil, eraser, and then you're going to want, however you want coloring. I'm going to go with marker since I'm already started. Colored pencil will work really well for the color part of this. One of the drawbacks of marker to use is because I'm using a black Crayola marker, the black might be dragged in where I'm coloring, so that is a downside of using a Crayola. That's one of the reasons why people use Sharpie over black Crayola, is because Sharpie does not smear when it's next to another color. It's just one of those drawbacks. So I'm going to set this off the side, but we're going to be using markers in a minute. And what we're going to do, I'm actually going to set this marker off the side here, is we need to transfer your name, flip it over, and get it to look like a reflection on the bottom. And there's a fairly easy way to do it. It's a little time consuming, but it's an easy way to do it. We need to actually, it's called the carbon transfer method. That's one of the names it goes by. And the way that works is you're gonna go in, and basically you take your pencil and you fill in on top of the black. Now, this is a lot harder if you've traced this in colored pencil, but it still can be done. All I'm doing is basically I'm like coloring in the black line. So what I've done here is I filled in the black, and you can see in a couple spots I went out the good eraser and fixed that. Outside the line, but I filled it in. I actually like colored it as if I was coloring. I'm not just putting a line over it. That's not going to work. You actually have to kind of fill it in. Okay. Then the next step is to actually flip it or fold it in half. And one of the reasons we used black was so that we could see through the paper, so we knew what to trace. Okay. So what I'm going to do is really hard. I'm going to trace. I got to stay on the line, because if I go off the line, it's not going to work. I'm just tracing it like that. Right. Then I'm going to open it up, and now I have an upside down version that has been flipped, and it's exactly the same size as the original. I need to do that to the rest of these letters. But before I do that, what I am going to do is I am going to do these letters that have tails, because they work smidge differently. Okay? Doesn't matter, I'll do the Y. You know what, I'll just do the J. I will do the J because it has a tall letter and a tail. What you do is the same thing. You go in and you fill it in. So I'm going to fast forward as I'm filling this in, so you don't have to watch me do that. Okay, so I filled this in with pencil now, just like I did with the S. What I'm going to do is The problem is for these kinds of letters with tails is you have part that's hanging down in the bottom half and you have part that's hanging in the top half. So you'll have to do this twice. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold this over, just like I had done with the S. And I'm gonna trace the part that I can see. So I can only see the top part really. So I'm gonna trace this. Trace the tail, okay. So if you look, you can lightly see this pencil that showed up there. But what about the tail? The tail has to flip up and show here. So that's how I'm gonna flip. Now that I have it open, I'm gonna flip the bottom up so I can get the tail part. Now if you look, this is very much an upside down version of this, and it kind of has a butterfly look to it. Okay? This is normal. They will overlap when it has a tail. That's just how it works because part of it's going to be on the bottom, then it has to flip and be part of the top. So make sure if you have a letter with a tail that you are doing it. The Y is exactly the same. There will be a flipped version of the tail up here, making kind of a butterfly look, and this part of the Y would be down here. So just be aware of that. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to fast forward and I'm going to finish out my name. It's going to take me a few minutes, so I'm going to fast forward and then go on to the next set of directions because there's more to it than just what this is. Okay, so now I have my letters. They're very faint at the bottom here, so I'm going to just go in and lightly kind of clean them up a little bit. I don't need to be really neat with or really dark with it because I'm going to go over it in marker in just a minute. But I just need to clean them up so I don't make a mistake with the marker. And so I did my Y again just to show you guys what that would look like. Okay, so next step, square marker's going to come in, and you're just going to marker over it just like you did before. That won't take very long. Just do a nice job. And yes, the letters should probably touch when they hit the line. So again, lowercase letters kind of have that butterfly look where they're overlapping. That is normal. Okay, next, big job is for the eraser. You're just going to go in and erase any extra lines that don't need to be there. In fact, you can actually get rid of the center line at that point too. Now, the next thing to do is we're going to start the coloring process. Coloring is actually very easy. You're going to be choosing your own colors, and how many colors you choose, again, is going to be totally up to you. The way you need to do this, though, is it is a reflection. So, if you put a color here in this spot, you have to match it to the other side. So let's give an example here. Orange. I've chosen orange. If I color orange here, so they're just going to be perfect reflections of each other. How many colors is up to you. The only spot that doesn't have a double is like here. This is actually one big space. There's not a line right here dividing it up, so this is actually one big space. So this might be all blue. This one might be all red. Okay? This space here would be its own. If you have a big gap, you'll need to decide, like maybe there was a space, like the D is barely touching here. Let's say the D wasn't touching here, and that becomes one big space. Then I need to decide, should I fix my D so they actually touch, or should I just color this one big space, one big color? It kind of depends on what you think you can do coloring wise and which is going to look better. When it comes to the more complicated flip letters like this, okay, you just have more spaces to color. So here's an example. This spot might be green here, then this one would be green here. I'm not going to try to fill up all the spaces. Each one is its own. So I'm not going to make one big letter all one color. I'm going to take each shape it creates all on its own. I am not worried about any empty space outside of the letters. So that's how my Y would, maybe my Y would be done. You got all those individual spaces. Just make sure that the reflections match. What I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up my video, and you'll watch me color this real fast. And I need you to do the same thing. This can be done in colored pencil if you need, or crayon actually as well. You just need to make sure that it's got a good reflection to make it a little bit easier. All right. And then I'll see you at the end. There's a little bit extra that we can do at the end. So don't just stop here. Make sure you go through and get to the end so you can watch the final steps. Okay, so now I have the coloring completed. One last thing to do is just maybe go in and with an eraser, if you still see some pencil lines, to go ahead and erase them. Now there's an optional step that is kind of nice to take if you have a piece of paper to glue down to. Not everybody does, so this is totally optional. If you have a black paper, this is going to look the best, glue to a black piece of paper. But again, this part is optional. What you're going to want to do first is get rid of any extra. So if you have extra paper on the side, we kind of want to even that out. So what I would do is carefully, straight as you can, cut off any extra and just set that off to the side. Okay. And like here, you can see that it's a little uneven. It's a little bit close, so I need to maybe even up the extra off of this side. Okay, so that looks pretty good. One other thing that you could do is, if you're careful, like I said, this works best if you have something to glue this to. You go in and use your pencil and carefully kind of outline the name, leaving a big white space around it. I'm not even going to dip very far. Like that. So giving it kind of a bubble. Then I'm going to take my scissors. Again, this is optional. So then I can, now that I have it cut out, this would be my last option, would be glue it to another piece of paper. I said black tends to look the best with this type of project, but do you have to cut this out? No, this part is totally optional, but I wanted to throw that out there for those that wanted to go that little extra step. The big thing is to get your name traced, get that flip, get this colored in as a reflection of each other, and then you're going to make sure to upload it to Google Classroom as a finished project. Since we are wrapping this particular project up, the other thing I want to throw out there is you can then turn around, and if you really like yours, you can upload it to the Padlet, and that will be something that you can add as a picture of yours. Just remember to put your name on it, because I will delete anybody's that doesn't have a name on it, because I'm not going to be able to figure out whose is who. So make sure you put your first name, last initial on it. All right, get this uploaded to Google Classroom, and I will see you next week.